Welcome back, everybody. It's good to have you here. If you saw our show last week and you labored through all of our technical issues, we apologize. I blame that on Cameron Salerno, who was not on the show last week, but he's easy to blame, or David Caraccio, our producer, who wasn't here last week. So the blame goes to them. Send them the emails. But thanks for bearing with us. I think we're all sharp, good resolution, good pixels, and all that. So we have a good show as we try to break down high school sports and just beyond the box scores and the names and the rankings and the issues, including Capital Christian High School here, a big name school, and is suing the governing body CIF. We will talk about that and what that means and if there's any legs to this lawsuit. We have a local in the NFL draft that starts today. Carson Strong out of Vacaville's Wilsey Wood High School, and I talked to a couple of his high school coaches about what kind of person he was, what kind of drive. These NFL people will reach down to the high school coaches to see who these people are about. Were they coachable? Did he play hurt and inspired? All those kind of things. And Carson Strong, we had a story in today's Sacramento Bee, did not play his senior year at Wilsey Wood High in Vacaville because of knee issues. And still got a scholarship to Nevada. That's rare, but he got a rare arm. So we'll talk a little bit about him. We'll bring aboard Jim Patrick, my running mate at the Sacramento Bee, to talk about the Capital Christian suit, but also about a story he did this week in the Bee on Art Banks, the longtime softball coach in Placer County. He's rounding third, heading to home for his final stretch. Great career, great guy, and Jim's got some good stuff out of him. And then we'll get Cameron Salerno, who does a great job with our high school stuff, whether it's polls on top players, top arenas, or top rooting sections, does our baseball rankings. So we'll talk to Cameron about other things as well. First, let's talk a little bit of basketball. Andrei Stojakovic of Jesuit High School is a rising fast prospect area that is in the middle. If he sounds familiar, he is the son of former Kings All-Star Peja Stojakovic. And the young Stojakovic, he's only a junior, just finished his junior year, going into senior year. Remarkable talent, 6'7", can handle the ball, all kinds of offensive moves, tenacious, very skilled. He's a terrific player. It's going to be our best player this coming winter. University of Kentucky, the Wildcats just offered. So if Kentucky's offering you, then you're legit, and he's big time legit. I think he's a 4-star prospect, but there's a guy we just wanted to throw out there and mention to keep an eye on him. Nice young man. When they lost to Elk Grove in the Sac Joaquin section basketball playoffs, and he was guarded by Amir Britton, who turned out to be our player of the year. Andrei Stojakovic was highly complimentary of Elk Grove, so he's a classy individual, good sportsman. And in the background, there was Peja signing autographs, and I went over and chit-chatted with him, and he says he's super proud of his kid. Perfectionist the father is, so is the son. So another player who just committed, another B All-Metro player, is Derek Claxton of Endercombe High School. There he is on the left. He's known as a 6'6" playmaker, but he's also a very tenacious defender. This is a playoff game against Sheldon in the Sac Joaquin section. He signed with Cal Poly Pomona. It is not a monstrous Division I program, but our theme on this show and in the Sacramento Bee is go where you're wanted, go where it fits, go where it feels right. It's a good school. He's a good player. There he is on the right, playing against Sheldon. So kudos to him. And whether it's large schools, medium schools, whatever, just go where it feels just right. And I think everybody wants to get recruited by the biggest schools where there's only so many offers to be had. So go where it feels right. All right. Another note, these are hard to do because you get to know some of these people over the years. So a sad farewell to Ralph Deloach. I tweeted this week. He was a Sacramento high school football star in the 1970s, started in the trenches at Cal when quarterback Joe Roth and running back Chuck Muncie were there when in the Pac-8. Longtime area probation officer, died last week unexpectedly. Just a radiant guy. There he is as a Kings fan. Only Ralph could get away with dressing up like that. Just a delightful guy, died unexpectedly, and we're thinking about Ralph and his family. He has a nephew, and Jerry Deloach, who played at Valley High School, played at Cal, played a long time in the NFL, was a long time assistant coach in the region. So good family, and we our thoughts and prayers to that great family. All right, let's bring in Jim Patrick. He's my editor. He's my friend. He's on location looking for a soccer ball not to hit him in the back of the cranium there. You're doing FC. There it is right there. But
my head looks like a soccer ball.
What do you think of that? It's, you should put a sponsor on it, put some checker marks on it. So you just posted a story this morning. Capital Christian, big name area of school, is suing the CIF.
Hey, Joe, hold up. Before we get to that, before we get to the serious stuff, we had the We don't skip the big news. Like
That's right.
let's
I
start
forgot
with
about this.
the Hillman water fountain. Look at this
This is
thing.
the tweet of the week. You're right. I overlooked at my notes here. This is the tweet of the week. We're going to have a fun one like this. So this is at Placer High School, and it's a drinking fountain that has a warning sign. The drinking of this water has led to individuals becoming section champions, state champions, and even an Olympic gold medalist, and that would be pole vaulter Stacy Dragila. So that's a cool thing right there. Normally you see caution, you're like, what is it? It's got zinc in there. No, it's got championship, water. So
we're gonna have people future employees of the Bee sign a waiver notifying them that Bee writers have gone on to work at the LA Times, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Just so you know, look out, guys. You might be getting into something good here.
That's exactly
that's a great
right.
idea. It's very
careful with what you inhale, though. That was a fun one. We're gonna try. So if anybody has a fun tweet, something fun connected to your school, send it to us. We'll give you a little airtime. So, and we would like to have fun on this show, Jim, but we also talk serious issues like high schools, such as Capital Christian, suing the governing body, the CIF. What is it? This is on sacb.com. If you want to read this story, it's a great recap by Jim Patrick here. So what's the gist of this? How serious? And do we know anything? What's your sense so far on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to set it up, Joe, because let me just throw in the qualifier right off the bat. I am not a legal scholar. I'm fairly smart. I've looked at a fair number of lawsuits in my time, and this is pretty serious. This is a lawsuit that's filed by a big-time law firm that has offices in San Francisco, offices in New York City, offices in Washington, D.C. This is a law firm that doesn't mess around. So, read between the lines there and read into that what you will. Does the lawsuit have merits? It's definitely going to be some tough questions for the CIF in that lawsuit. And the point, I would say the lawsuit, Joe, really hinges on Cap Christian. You see they're playing a club football game during the very short-lived spring league just before the governor lifted prohibition on high school sports in this state. And that's what they got in trouble for. Cap Christian played games as a club team. They rented their facilities, they rented their uniforms, and basically turned the school over to a club football team, which was mostly consisted of players and coaches from that school. So the complaint that Cap Christian has is that they are unfairly targeted because they're a Christian school. And they argue that Ripon Christian, Vacaville Christian, and I believe is it Stonebridge Christian, Joe?
Stonebridge Christian, yes.
Yeah, so they're arguing that the four schools that were sanctioned by the CIF, it was unfair because they're all Christian schools. What they're leaving out in the lawsuit and what the CIF will likely present as a defense of its actions is that those schools are the ones that were willing to rent their facilities and their uniforms. The reason they were sanctioned is because they were more involved than any other school in terms of running the league. The lawsuit goes to great lengths to say that I believe there was an Elk Grove team that was in the short-lived club league, and that Elk Grove team had 90% of its players from Grant High School and from Elk Grove High School. So according to the lawsuit. So they say, why are all these kids not being punished, but the Cap Christian kids are being punished? And the CIF is going to have to answer those questions. And according to the lawsuit, it's going to be in a court of law and in front of a jury. The Cap Christian wants a jury to hear this and decide this and decide whether or not they are due some damages. And
I see Jim. I don't hear Jim. We'll get Jim right back. This is an interesting case where you just don't see high schools suing the governing body. It happened in 2010. Modern Day of Southern California sued the governing body over an issue of transfers. And I implore people to read the story that we posted on SACB this morning. And another thing that in this suit is Capital Christian is alleging that because of this playoff ban last fall and this season playoff ban, unless they get lifted, tied to the interpretation of breaking rules. The CIF and the Sac Joaquin section said that the Capital Christian broke rules. In effect, was having a high school team play club. It's a violation of all their rules. And Capital Christian saying that they don't agree. Fair enough. In this suit, it has wordage that declining enrollment. Capital Christian with the potential to have 1,700 students, they have fewer than 300. That's going to be interesting because the enrollment was declining at Capital Christian well before the pandemic. Now, I understand what Capital Christian was trying to do with the club team, including all the area schools, Vacaville Christian and Ripon Christian. These are coaches who were trying to give their kids an opportunity to keep playing, to keep active, to keep sane when so much of the pandemic kept people out of class, the distance learning. So the intent was noble to help kids, but when the CIF and the governing body CIF and the SAC this is against the rules, that's where you have a problem with the interpretation of the rules. So I think of, Saul Patu is the head coach at Capital Christian. Good guy. He's in it to help kids, a terrific coach, a good father. He's got kids playing college football, including at Cal and including at Stanford. I've known Aaron Garcia, the athletic director, for a lot of years. Same kind of thing. Again, interpretation of the rules, Capital Christian, the principal, Chris Orr said, these rules don't make sense, blah, blah, blah. That's where this trial is going to really be interesting to see what happens. And Capital Christian is seeking monetary damages and wants to have the legal fees paid for. So I do know this: if Capital Christian were to lose this case, it could really hurt the school. I can't imagine the football is going to be sustainable if they're going to have any more playoff bans and things like that. It's a powerhouse program, but only as good as the feeder programs. And there's Jim. He's back. I just had my best material ever on this show. It was
I know.
Great. And just nod like, hey, that was good stuff. So I just said
I was backstage listening the whole time, Joe, and it was I was moved to tears actually by the thoroughness and accuracy of your report.
Which is why you walked away. So it's going to be curious to see what happens on this, and it's going to be a jury trial. But I wonder when this thing will get going.
They haven't even set a first hearing date. They're weeks away from having a first hearing, and Sam Stanton gave me the impression that long time. This is not something that's going to be decided in the next 6 months, and this is not something that likely is going to lead to them making it into the playoffs. This is about grudges. This is about money. This is about lots of serious issues right now, Joe. That it's not going to be decided anytime soon.
No. One thing that is coming to a soon end, unless he changes his mind, is the incredible coaching career of Art Banks. He's well known in Placer County. He's coached at various schools there at Roseville and Wood Creek. And here he is, Paul Kitagaki, our photographer, got a nice stuff. And Jimmy ran a great story on him. More than 750 wins. What makes him unique? Why is he stepping down? He's only 71. But recap us about Mr. Art Banks.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those. I tweeted the other day that this guy just has absolutely no ego, and that's not super rare at the high school level. But the higher up you go in sports, the more rare it becomes, Joe. And it's refreshing to be around a guy like that. He does it because he lives in Roseville. He does it because he taught at Roseville. He taught at Wood Creek, which was a team in the other dugout over there, and he does it because he loves being around the sport and teaching kids, and he's got enthusiasm. I talked to one of the players for the story, and she said that this guy Art Banks is always making jokes. He's a jokester, and he keeps things light, but he's got a bunch of old school ideas that mix up with the analytics stuff that the girls are getting all the time from their club team. So it's just a really interesting mix of old school coaching from him. I mean, the dude's sitting there, you'd love it, Joe. The bag of the daisy red, white, and blue sunflower seed bag. He's got that in his paws at all times when he's sitting in the dugout there, because it's like the only play. Can't chew the seeds on the field, but you can when you're in the dugout. So he'd sit there and just be mowing through the seeds. And anyway, it was a classic guy, and I'm glad he talked to us to let us hang out with him in the dugout. We had a good time with that one.
No, and that's a good story that you ran in Sacramento Bee yesterday. And he's the winningest softball coach in Sacramento area history. Started his high school varsity coaching career at Roseville, bounced around, came back to Roseville. So neat to see. And he's done great things. All right, let's take a quick peek, Jim, at our softball rankings. These are done by our good friend Pete DeFore. He has a top 20 list. So check that out every Tuesday or Wednesday on SACB.com. He's got great news and notes and insight. Pretty much the same teams here, Jim. And there's Roseville with Art Banks, number 8. And right there, but we're winding up fast with league play.
And those top 4 teams have danced around a little bit, but really it boils down to, at this point, the only question in my mind is Del Oro and Sheldon. Who's number 1 really out of that group? Sheldon has been charging up. They're hot lately. St. Francis has lost to Sheldon. I'm not sure if they played Del Oro, but Elk Grove has lost to Sheldon. And it's definitely a case where it looks like Del Oro is the runaway number 1 team, but Sheldon's making a case for itself. And that, to me, is probably the most interesting thing in the rankings this week.
Yeah, and looking ahead, so we know Del Oro will be Division 2, Sheldon's Division 1, St. Francis Division 1, Elk Grove Division 2, Vanden could be Division 2 or 3, Folsom Division 1, Rockland, I think Division 1. So we got, we may see some of these showdowns in the playoffs. So Jim, always good. Check out Jim's stuff on Capital Christian, the lawsuit that's posted on sacb.com today, and also on Art Banks.
And real quick, Sac Republic says they'll give away free tickets to everybody on the live stream since their Wi-Fi hotspot went down. So
I love it. Jim, be well, sir.
They're laughing at me over there. All right, thanks, Joe.
All right, that's good. He's on location covering the FC Republic, does a little bit of everything. So speaking of people who do a little bit of everything, let's bring in Cameron Salerno. He's tireless. He's energetic. He wasn't on the show last week because he had some kind of dental appointment. I offered some pliers. I got some pliers in the garage to help him. He didn't get back to me on that, but Cameron, it looks like you're in good working order. So welcome back, and good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I know I have to get my wisdom teeth out soon, and so I had a consultation to kind of see what was going on, and I realized one of my teeth down below right here is coming in sideways, and that's why it's been bothering me. So I'm going to Hawaii in a few weeks. So after I get back from Hawaii, I'll have that dental work done.
Don't go to Hawaii with a mouthful of gauze. It's a bad look. And all right, so Cameron, one thing that's fun about covering high school sports around here, I've been doing it a long time, and you've been doing a great job of it in recent years, is we get to see guys perform well in high school and sometimes in college and sometimes in the major leagues or the NFL and NBA. And so one guy of note is Chase Davis. We're going to run this little video clip. He's from Franklin High School. He's at the University of Arizona. So he just went yard here, a walk-off. You've done stories on him. What is the word on this guy, and why does he get people so excited?
Man, Chase Davis is special. He was a guy who didn't play a lot last year. He waited his turn, and now he's a starting outfielder for the University of Arizona. He's second in the Pac-12 in home runs with 12. He had obviously this walk-off home run against Arizona State, Arizona's biggest rival. He's hit clutch home runs. He's hit grand slams. He's had multiple homer games. I mean, he can do it all. And the comp everyone says is Carlos Gonzalez. And when you look at him side by side with their swing, it's identical. Leg kick and everything. And he also wears number 5 unironically. But I remember him telling me that Carlos Gonzalez is his favorite player in MLB and definitely someone he looks up to. And so just funny to see all the people who comp him to Carlos Gonzalez and say he looks just like him. And because I think unironically, that's how it is. But yeah, he's a really special player. He's just one of those guys. Like I said, he waited his turn. He didn't get a lot of playing time as a freshman at Arizona. He was a guy who was an MLB draft prospect. He probably could have signed somewhere if there was a normal season. I mean, he had all the potentials. One of the strongest outfield arms you'll see. I think he was clocked at 99 miles an hour throwing in the outfield. And also, too, Jerry Manuel, who's a former White Sox and Mets manager, had high praise for him when I wrote that story on him in the summer of 2020. Just someone who really said he could be a face of an organization. That's something that not everyone's going to say about someone. I mean, that was just something that was unprovoked, that was said. And so definitely he has a fan in Manuel, and obviously I think Manuel's making him proud with how he's playing this season.
No, and Jerry Manuel is a Cordova High School graduate, was a first-round pick out of high school in 1972, played in the big leagues, as you said, multiple places as a major league manager. So that is high regard. I remember talking to Brian Kilby, the Franklin High School coach in Elk Grove, when he was when Chase Davis was there, and he said, this guy's got leadership, he's got greatness, he's going to do good things. What's his work ethic like? Excellent. What's his character like? Excellent. So he checks off in all the boxes. So in the coming weeks, Cameron, we'll talk about more prospects. He's not draft eligible this year, but other local guys are. We'll talk about them in the coming weeks. And one guy who we like to talk about on the show is Logan Webb. Chris Biederman, one of our running mates, did a great story on him the other day. So take a look at that on sacb.com. Logan Webb is the Giants ace. He's off to a great start. And the thing that we like to stress, Cameron, you and I, is if you're in high school and if you can play multiple sports, play multiple sports. This guy was a terrific quarterback, terrific baseball pitcher. So play both while you can. No need to specialize. Coaches at the higher levels want athletes to specialize. It's good for the good mental well-being. It's good for their muscle groups and all that. So here's a guy who did both. And so it's a neat story. And he talked about how he played both. And because he was a quarterback prospect at 6'2.5" or so, with a cannon arm. And I can't believe all this time has flown by. So you're a Giants fan already, Cameron, and to see a local guy doing things, and we've talked about it on the show before. He's a giver. He comes back to his community. He comes back to Rockland, talks to teachers and students at the elementary schools and the high school. So he's still connected. And Placer County and all of Giants fans are behind this guy. He's easy to root for.
Oh, easy to root for. And like you said, I mean, there's been a handful of guys who've come out of this area and played for the Giants. I mean, Mauricio Dubon is someone with the Capital Christian High School. He's on the current team. And then obviously Andrew Suzak, who backed up Buster Posey in 2014. He's a World Series champion. Now his brother is going to be probably a top draft pick this upcoming summer. So it's pretty cool to see.
Those Susaks are from Jesuit, so great lineage there. And good point. Good point.
Yeah. Well, they both grew up in Roseville, but they went to Jesuit. So, yeah. So 9-1 exactly. Pride.
Exactly right. So that's good stuff. All right, let's take a look at your baseball rankings. Cameron runs a top 25. We're only giving you a teaser sample size here. He runs those rankings every Monday or Tuesday, sacb.com. Always good, informative stuff on players and teams and themes and what's going on there. Cameron, I saw McClatchy yesterday play at River City. It was for first place in the Metropolitan Conference, and McClatchy looked sharp with Gabe Henderson, their ace. So he moved to 7-0, 11-0 win. Gabe Henderson had 8 strikeouts and drove into just a remarkable player. And Malcolm Moore, I don't know if anybody's heard of this guy, but this guy had another home run. He's got 13 home runs this season. A lot of scouts there. So this is a team that's off to a roaring start. They're going to pack up their schedule, and they're going to play Vista Del Lago, Del Campo, a couple other non-league teams here down the stretch. So good work there by the McClatchy Lions. Let's touch real quick on number 10, Oak Ridge. They have a feel-good story, a sad story, but there's great strength and resolve within this program, and other area programs are rallying behind it. It's about Bryce Baser. Who is he, and what's the intrigue with him and this team?
Yeah, so he was diagnosed with cancer in July, and
he's a player on the team.
Yeah, he's a player on the team. I pulled it up in August. His entire team shaved his head in honor of him, and I thought that was just a really cool thing, just knowing that they were behind him, and this season they're rallying around him. They're playing for him. Teams have dedicated and worn helmet stickers for him as well, and I know Del Oro paid tribute to them last week. And so I just think it's really
this week. Folsom this week too, Cameron. Both teams took a knee, JV teams, varsity teams. It's something like this that helps unite everybody. We know that these are fierce rivals, Folsom, Del Oro, Oak Ridge, and all that. But when it comes to real life and a young man battling cancer, I think it's just really neat and speaks volumes of people coming in to support. That's just outstanding. And cancer is a horrible thing by any measure, but especially so when it hits young people.
Yeah, no, I agree. Great point. And also too, it's just cool to rally around him, and so much support. And definitely, I think it helps. Cancer sucks and it's terrible, but when you have supportive people around you and people rallying around you, it definitely, I think, helps a lot.
What was your notebook lead this week locally?
Oh, that's a great question. What did I write? Oh, I wrote about Del Campo. Yeah.
Yes.
So
what's going on with the Cougars?
Yeah, they're having a great season. I mean, they lost their ace pitcher, Jordan Jacobson, in the first game of the season against Vacaville. He's been only hitting this season. I mean, he's going to Sacramento State, big lefty. And Del Campo has just been trucking along. I mean, this is a successful program that has got it done. And I love their coach. He's always a great guy to talk to, and he loves his team and says it's one of the best groups he's coached. And he's coached a section championship team in 2018 rather. And so they're off to a great start this season. They not struggled early on, but if you look at their schedule, they've lost 4 games. They all are by 1 run. So
they're good. Kevin's a good coach, and this is a school back in the 80s and 90s. It was Division I powerhouse. Dusty Baker went to school there. Dusty Baker's still coaching, still managing. Great career. great guy, and he was a player there in the late '60s. And there's a slab, if that's the right description, at Del Campo behind the backstop that has his name. That honors Dusty Baker, an alum, and so baseball's been big at Del Campo forever. And they're going to play McClatchy either at the end of this week or early next week. So that's a nice non-league game as well. And so back on those rankings. So you got Wood Creek number 1, lost the season opener to Rockland. Correct me if I'm wrong. 17, 18 games later, still winning, still doing well. A lot of good talent. Franklin of Elk Grove is off to a good start. Certainly probably going to win the Delta League. Jesuit and Elk Grove play 3 times this week. So that's we're barreling down the final track. And I think the playoffs start May 10th or 11th or so. So it's coming up, Cameron.
Coming up. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the highest ranking in school history for Whitney. I can't remember them being higher ranked. I know they opened somewhat recently, but at least since I've been here, that's the highest they've ever been ranked.
I would think so. I did the B rankings for baseball for many years, and then you pounced on them this year, and I would agree. And Whitney's not that old of a school, so I would agree. And Franklin's been number 1 before. McClatchy, Elk Grove been number 1. So that's Del Campo's been number 1 over the years. So is Oak Ridge. So is Jesuit. I think Wood Creek being number 1 now this season is probably the highest Wood Creek has been.
I believe so. I don't think they've ever been number 1.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's usually because we base it. These aren't just win-loss standings. These are emphasis on strength of schedule and non-league schedule and things like that. And
well, you might ask, why is Oak Ridge 12-10 ranked number 10? Well, they've played in the SFL, which is probably the toughest conference in the Sacramento area, at least maybe even Northern California, and they've had quality wins against Folsom and other teams that are in the SFL. So I mean, if you go through the gauntlet of the SFL, you deserve to be ranked high. And I think, if I remember, there's 4 automatic bids for the SFL.
The Sierra Foothill League and Delta League, usually the power leagues get a couple extras. The best league in Northern California this year is the West Catholic Athletic League down in the Bay Area. That's with Midi of San Jose, Valley Christian of San Jose, Sarah of San Mateo, St. Francis of Mountain View, just a powerhouse thing. But some of those teams play our teams. And I think
Midi's going to play Wood Creek very soon.
Was Wood Creek in the finals of the Boris Classic?
That they play Midi. I believe it's either end of this week or next week. It's coming up. I know they're supposed to play them. The game got rained out, and you know how it is in May and April. There's some rain that comes along, and it kind of derails some games. But they worked through it and they rescheduled, so it's good.
Excellent.
I know in the past the Northern California champion has played the Southern California champion, the Boris Classic. So let's see. Hopefully that happens this year, because obviously none of this stuff has happened the last few years just because of COVID.
Yeah, and because one of the reasons why we're going to have a first-time NorCal Regional Baseball Championship, which I think is so cool, because we have it in football, we have it in basketball, is because a lot of these teams do play each other. Elk Grove teams play the Bay Area teams, and Jesuit does, and they do well, and this has happened for several years, so it makes sense to merge them there. So we'll keep an eye on that. Cameron, good to catch up with you. We will see you very soon. Special thanks to Cameron, always doing great work. Check him out every day on sacb.com. Also does great work on Instagram with his post there, Cameron Salerno Media. Special thanks to Jim Patrick as well, and Paul Kitagaki, our photographer, to Jim Silva and to David Caraccio, our behind the scenes guys. We thank them always for their efforts. We thank you for joining us. If you missed part of the show, it's always linked online, including recent shows. We will be back next week. We appreciate the viewership and the input, and we thank everybody, and we will see you real soon.